Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Coffee with Pastors. Things are a little different today. Leah's my daughter, my oldest daughter. She's drinking tea. Kind of throws off the balance. Pastor Cliff Smith is at home with his wife Kathy. She's had some irregular blood pressure going up and down, and so he's at home taking care of her. Previously, we've been in Egypt together working. That's why you've been seeing a couple of reruns. But we want to welcome everyone to our global audience here in Studio 44, the Henry Aaron Studio, the greatest ball player ever to play. And we are sponsored, of course, by the beautiful Gate Cafe. Jerry and I just came from there, had some coffee, some sandwiches, some hibiscus tea from Egypt. Just a great place to relax, talk, pray, be alone, have small Bible studies, whatever you want. But it's just a great coffee shop. So they actually just supported a huge outreach in Colombia through their coffee shop. And right now, the proceeds are going to help Operation Christmas Child and shoeboxes. So we welcome everyone. Again, this is my oldest daughter. This is Leah. And she is a regional director for Fellowship of Christian Athletes and is currently the acting director of youth ministries here as we search for a new youth minister. So right now she's burning it on both ends, but you're on.
Yeah, so that's basically it. Like I said, I'm the area director here for Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
So tell them what that means. What do you do?
So, boy, that's a long question.
What do you do?
I know. So the mission of FCA is to lead every coach and athlete into a growing relationship with Jesus and His church. And we do that through high school campuses, college campuses, FCA camps, and FCA sports leagues. That's the easy summation of it.
Working on high school, college campuses, and then you have a global outreach as well.
Yes, and I serve on the international advancement team for the state of Florida. FC is currently in over 140 countries. I just saw the numbers. I believe it was over 10,000 students attended an FCA camp last summer. So just incredible what God is doing around the world, and really cool to be a part of sports and Jesus throughout the world.
So we're continuing our study in the Psalms, and we apologize. We know there's been some interruption with our travel and our sickness and blah, 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 but we try to get back on track. We're in Psalm 37 today. It's a long psalm. It takes up 2 or 3 columns here in my Bible, full of meat. Just a great psalm. And as always, we encourage you to read the whole psalm, and we encourage you to pick the verse or two that you need to memorize, or the 1 or 2 that you need to meditate on, that you need today, what's going to help you the most. We're going to focus on the first 7 verses today, and then one of my favorite verses we'll get to toward the end of this. So it starts off by saying, "Do not fret because of evil men, or be envious of those who do wrong. For like the grass that will wither, like the green plants that will soon die off." Pay no attention to that. But you, trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land. Enjoy safe pastures. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. All right, there's so much right there in those first 4, but let's start off with the age-old issue, Leah, of how do we deal with, how do we live good, godly lives in an evil world, knowing that evil's going to pass away? How does your generation process that?
Yeah, so one of the things I told him a few days ago is this is probably one of the most common questions that I get from college students, college athletes, high school students, and I'm sure adults too. I just don't talk to as many adults.
She doesn't like us.
No, trust me. But it's really that idea. People are always saying, how can you trust a good God? How can you trust that God's good when all these bad things happen in the world? And I had this conversation in girls' small group a few weeks ago, and one of the things we talked about is framing our reference. Not that we live in this good world that bad things happen into, that we live in a fallen, broken, evil world that God things happen into. And I think that's part of framing it, is really, it helps you be more amazed at the good and less depressed at the evil, right? I mean, if we say, well, we expect that the world is this way, then I think it's that much of a difference when we live by the Spirit. And that was one thing that, we talked about.
Well, I was reading an article last night, the 5 things that are keeping people awake at night, insomnia. And it's really kind of, the one of them made sense to me. Well, none of them, as Christians, we trust God. But the one, the economy, the inflation rate, the cost of food, those kind of things. But everything else on the list was things that they're questionable to begin with, but there's nothing you can do about them.
Yeah. You have no control.
War in the Middle East,
Yeah.
climate change, people are still scared of COVID. Again, fears are real, whether they're real or not. They're real to them. But it's a reminder that evil will all pass away. God's ultimately in control, even though for a short time, evil has a hand. So how do we pull people out of this mess?
Well, I think one of the best verses in the New Testament is that we have not been given a spirit of fear. And the fear that God gives us, he says, is not, and it's first of all of these other things. And I think that really comes, though, from trusting God. If you trust him that he's got this, it was really interesting. I was at a huddle for women last week, and they had all these women write burdens on this wooden block. Mm-hmm. And the second day they said, how many of you guys wrote burdens that are not yours but other people's? And I don't know if men do this as much, but I know for women...
Men don't talk.
Well, no, but just carrying other people's burdens, right? And this isn't even my burden to carry. I'm carrying this person. I'm carrying a war in the Middle East. That's not my burden to carry.
Right.
That's God's. His yoke is easy. His burden is light. And so I think when we steward the things God has given us to steward, I think that helps eliminate our fear and kind of entrust him with the rest of it.
I read an interesting quote the other day that really hit me as a pastor after doing this for 40 years. But it said, I cannot carry your problem, but I can carry you. And I think that's what most people need. I can't solve all your problems, but I can be there with you. We can cry together. We can laugh together. We can even figure it out together. But I can't really carry it for you because it's your burden. But we can go through it together.
Yeah. Well, he says you mourn with those and you sit with the. I think even when you look at Jesus when Lazarus died, he was just there, and here's Martha's saying, if you had been here, this wouldn't have happened. And really, obviously he does ultimately fix it, but we're not Jesus, and part of it was just the presence of it. So yeah, I think there's a difference between mourn with Israel or mourn with these people. Certainly there's injustice in the world. And, I've told people I'll spend the rest of my life fighting injustice. That's the call on my life. But I think you can't live in fear of it. You can't let that fear consume you.
Right. No, we help. The first goal is for us to get people to Jesus Christ, but then to bring justice into the world by feeding people, by clothing people, by sending aid to people. That's all a part of the gospel, according to Jesus. This is personal, but Psalm 37:4 is a promise that I grabbed a hold of a long time ago. And some of you know my story, some of you don't, but I'm from a very lower middle class.
Podunk? Is that a good word?
We always had food to eat. There was no problem there. But looking back.
Oh, I meant your town.
Oh, my town,
not
yeah.
your home.
No. But we just barely got by. Dad worked his tail off. Mom took care of us, and really never thought, I would leave my home little town in Missouri, and I would travel by reading books. And God has given me the desires of my heart, and little did I know that I'd be doing it for Him. Now I get opportunities to be in countries around the world, not only experiencing the culture and the history, but I get to share the gospel with these people and help plant churches, and I think it's an answer to that. So I don't know what God's put in your heart, but God said, I'll give you the desires of your heart. It's not a promise of Cadillacs and gold rings, and just the opposite. The desires of our hearts should be God's. And I'm not sure mine were at the beginning, I think, I just thought it'd be cool to be able to, go to Egypt. I had no idea that I would be able to help do God's work in Egypt. So, but God has a way of working things out. I think that's what 37:4 is all about.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was talking about this the other day, and I said, and I can say this because it's not you bragging or anything, but for you to do what you did was pretty crazy. Like, it's not something, the puddings are not a strikeout, and, they like what they like, and, everyone kind of has hung out there. So for you to listen to God's call in your life, uproot, move to Florida, like, really big steps of faith, I think. To look at, and not that I'm putting it all on you, but to look at the scope of the world changing. Like, you can ask his parents all the time. I always ask them, "Did you ever think he'd be a pastor?" And they would just laugh hysterically, like, "No, we never thought he'd be a pastor." And I don't think that your dad could have ever imagined, that he would have grandchildren from the other side of the world, and that, we would do the things that we would be able to do.
She's speaking about our 3 adopted kids.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just from Missouri. I'm boring too. But but truly, like, I think when you delight yourself in God, and I hear people quote this verse all the time, right? When they want to get married, when they want kids, when they want this. But I think when you, like you said, when you delight yourself in what God delights in the things of God, and I don't think it's easy. I don't think it's easy. I think if you would say, like, yeah, God gave me the desires of my heart, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't like, traipsing off to Egypt was some, like, it's still hard. It's still hard when God, I think people take that verse and they think, well, then everything's going to work out in my life. If I just delight myself in the Lord, he's going to give me everything. It's going to be easy. It's going to be great. A lot of times I think it gets harder.
Yeah, it's not been easy, but when you look back, one of my lines is because her grandmother, my mother-in-law, just died 2 weeks ago. And she was 94 and a half. And we were joking on this last trip to Egypt. I said, I want to live a life that when I get to the nursing home and I start telling stories, they think I'm making them up.
And half of them probably will be made up by then.
Yeah, but there'll be enough truth in it that I'll feel good about it.
Don't worry. He won't be in a home. Nobody worry. They're gonna start being very concerned about you.
No, I'm not checking in yet.
I'll look out for him.
All right, you take 5, 6, and 7. Read that because the words are small.
Yeah, I saw that was your. All right, so similar, piggybacking off of verse 4, but commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will do this. He will make your righteousness shine like the dawn, the justice of your cause like the noonday sun. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him.
There's no doubt, and we've talked about this multiple times on this particular podcast, waiting for the Lord. I always want to take things into my own hands until I get real tired. And then when I get really exhausted, I say, okay, God, you can take it from here. But the truth is, things are in God's hands anyway. And when we try to grab it's when we usually mess things up.
I had a very wise woman say to me, because unfortunately one of the genes I inherited from him is the work, or, the just do more, cause,
which I got from my dad.
Yeah, it's just passed down through a line of puddings. But a very wise woman said to me a few weeks ago, if Satan can't slow you down, he'll try to speed you up. And it hit me so hard because, I know for me and for you, like, we're not easily slowed down. Like, there's not a lot of slowing down for us. And so I think what the enemy can do is speed. Now I'm doing all these things for God, and I'm washed in busyness, and I have no be still.
Well, because it never stops. I mean, the emails, the texts, the phone calls, it's an ongoing thing. But I will tell you, one of the things I've been trying, still not great at it, because Cliff's better than us because Cliff gets up at 4. So there's nothing else happening in the world. If news hasn't even happened yet. So he's up and done.
The world's just frozen.
The world's frozen,
yes.
Yeah. But for the rest of us, it's different. but I have a few songs that I listen to, and I actually was sent a link from Good News Productions. Jerry, can we embed that into this? Good. We'll put this in here. It's about a 15-minute. It's just soft music, and ever so often there's a scripture, but it's designed to do just that, to slow you down, and you just sit. Even if it's for those 15 minutes, obviously you can hit replay, and you can do it again. But I've found that very helpful. It helps me memorize scripture as well, but just being in the presence of God, and because my first job is to worship God, and if I'm not doing that, I mean, at this stage in my life, I know how to be a pastor. Being a priest is the hardest part. A pastor represents God to the people. The priest represents the people to God. And that's something I think most pastors struggle with. And so we'll embed that there for you.
Yeah, and obviously everybody knows, I think this is only getting worse, right? Because the kids coming behind us, I mean, if you look at the numbers on how much they have access to, on how fast the world comes at them, on their lowering attention spans, on and on and on. When David's writing this, he's probably sitting in fields for hours, with sheep and, being still. And I think it's going to have to be more and more intentional. As technology and the world just speeds up, I think we have to, be so intentional about that. Or I think you can find noise 24/7 if you wanted to,
Oh, it never stops.
Yeah.
No. Ministry never stops. Your life never stops. I don't care what you're doing, what you do for a living. It will consume you completely if you let it. And that's why people end up missing church. They miss their time for worship because I'm so busy, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. Well, something's got to go. And it can't be your time with God personally or your time with God corporately. And sadly, that's the two things that people chop out. Now, you don't do it it's not like, okay, I have a list here, let's not meet with God and let's not go to church. But yet we do it. Well, I can't miss the ball game.
American
can't
families
not go boating.
Are so overscheduled. And I think that's something that American families, just speaking for them, have to look at realistically, right? Because, in my world, kids are travel softball every weekend, or they're in this and that and that. And it's like, I just think families now are go, go, go. And that's I think a reality that people are just going to have to be intentional about.
Agreed.
I did want to add one thing about waiting patiently. I don't think this is something that you or I are particularly good at.
I think it's my strength.
But so I'm 38 years old. And so I was telling somebody the other day, if God had given me the position that I'm in now when I was 28, I would not have been ready for it. I thought that I would have said, yes, I'm ready for this leadership or this role or this responsibility. But the fact is I wasn't. Like, God had to do things and work, and it wasn't that he didn't use me in that time, but I wasn't ready for the role I have now. I don't think I would have understood how to serve the people that God had entrusted to me, to steward the ministry God had given me. And so I'm learning that more and more, and it doesn't make it easier because I'm someone that's like, yeah, let's do it. God gave me this, and I also inherited that from you. I didn't get everything from him. I am actually tall, just for the record, and he is not. But there are really good things I got from my mom's side. I just wanted to throw that in. But I don't know if you even, and I'm sure at 48, I'll probably say the same thing, and so that's something I'm learning as I get older, is what it means to not think I can do everything now and really truly wait on God's timing.
Yeah, I think too, and I'll play the other card. So I'm 60, and I'm seeing God open doors now.
And you were like,
I wanted them at 40, but had I got them then, I think my ego would have got the best of me. I think I had to be beat up a little bit. There's an old quote that said, "God can't use you greatly until He's broken you mightily." And I think everybody has to go through that process of life to say, you know what, I can be humble enough to be with the broken people. I can be there. I'm not too good for this. I'm not above whatever needs to be done. And if you get things too easy too quickly, you can kind of get that expectation of I deserve this and that and whatever.
Well, and I know Carey Nieuwhof says a lot of times on his podcast, you don't want your influence to outpace your character. And so many young people, pastors, ministry people, now they have Twitter and they have this and they have that. They have this massive influence and they're not ready yet, right? Their character's developing, and their leadership's developing. And so I'm not saying we don't use people as we're young. And obviously I empower a lot of young people, but really learning to be patient.
You have to grow in these stories as you're.
Yeah.
And as we've talked about before, the reward for faithfulness is more work. So as you're obedient to God, your status doesn't go up, your responsibility goes up.
Yeah.
All right, one more verse, just because I like it, and I think it speaks to, this may speak to the rest of the world more than us, but there's some of you watching it will speak regardless. And it's verse 25, and it's a promise that people need to hang on to. Go ahead and read that for them, please.
Okay. Good thing I was an English teacher, right?
Right.
I was young, and now I am old. Yet I have never seen the righteous forsaken or their children begging bread. Give me to read the next one?
It's fine.
Well, it just says they're always generous and lend freely. Their children will be blessed.
So it's a promise that God puts us in a position of blessing, that you can trust Him. Jerry and I were talking many times we've wondered how things were going to work out at the end of the month, but God always makes things work out at the end of the month, one way or the other. And we're all still here, and everything that we've spent so much time fretting and worrying about, and God's had it all along.
Yeah.
And David said, I've never seen the righteous forsaken. Well, obviously, God's people have been through some really hard times, and there are people right now struggling, but God's people, and again, so the extra verse that you read, so if there are people struggling, let's just say right now, Gaza, Israel, Ukraine, we're working in Poland, then it's my job to help them get food so they don't have to be begging.
Right.
Because I'm in a position to be generous.
Yeah, I'm not that old, obviously, yet. But the thing I think about all the time when I look at our family story, when I look at my life, is truly something that my mom said to me when I was very young, was that, may you always know that God is faithful. And I think no matter, it's never been easy. The storms have come, but I think I see this current of the faithfulness of God through our lives. And I thought about it a lot as your dad passed, and as my mom's mom passed, is just looking at this lifetime of God's faithfulness in generationally, right? To see me be the product of a grandfather who sat every night and ate sardines and read his Bible, and to
two in the morning every night after he got off work, he would eat a can of sardines and oil and read his Bible.
Yeah, and I don't think, and so for me to be the legacy of that, to be the generational blessing, God's generational blessing of families through that, I think it's undeniable to see the faithfulness of God, as you look over the course of your life.
Well, again, we thank you guys so much. If you're blessed by this, hit like, hit the share button, and please take some time to put this out there, but also listen to what we're going to embed in this, because I think it can really be a blessing to you. Have a great day.
God, you're worthy of all our worship and praise.
You are the creator of all things.
Let us worship for who you are.
You are holy.
You are King of Kings.
You are perfect.
You are all powerful.
You are all consuming.
You are love.
You are wise.
You are in control.
You are our Father.
You are merciful.
You are patient.
You are forgiving.
You are a wonderful counselor.
You are Alpha and Omega.
You are our everlasting hope.
Lord, you are my God.
I will exalt you and praise your name.
For in perfect faithfulness,
You have done wonderful things.
Things planned long ago.
Because your love is better than life,
My lips will glorify you.
I will praise you as long as I live.
And in your name, I will lift up my hands.
Publish his glorious deeds among the nations.
Tell everyone about the amazing things he does.
Then I heard every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth and on the sea and all that is in them, saying,
to him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb,
Be praise and honor and glory and power
Forever and ever.